And welcome back for another day of fun. Did you all enjoy yesterday's presentations? Good. Yeah, a lot of information, right? A lot of tools. And I'm sure that you have a lot of questions as well. And just later on, I'll put up my email if you have any questions, or if you want to connect to other speaker, or if you want to get a copy of their handout, I'll be happy to send it to you. So today we have another set, or a lineup of speakers. But before we start, I really want to say that we do have walking tours on this coming Thursday at 10:30 to noontime. And we have scheduled 4 different walking tours at different neighborhoods at the branch library. The purpose is to get you to those neighborhoods and to get to know your local library, and that's why we're doing those tours. And those are free tours. It talks about basically highlight the culture, the history, and of those 4 neighborhoods. So we're talking about North Beach, Castro neighborhood, Mission Bay, and then also one more. Okay, but that's okay. It's outside. So let's get started. To kick us off this series, we have reference librarian and outreach librarian from the Sutro Library. And let's all welcome Steenalisa Tilcock.
All right, I'd like to thank Richard and the San Francisco Public Library for inviting me to be here today. I'm very excited to be here and share some of our resources with you. So, as Richard mentioned, my name is Steenalisa Tilcock. I am the Reference and Outreach Librarian at Sutro Library. We are a branch of the California State Library, and we're located right here in San Francisco on the San Francisco State University campus, so kind of the other side of the city. I've been with the library for the past couple of years now, and I'm really excited to share some of our resources with you today. So, my hope is that this presentation will bring you all to the Sutro Library either physically or virtually, and I will start with the history of our library and then get into some of the resources and services we offer and how you can take advantage of them. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. So today, I want to start by talking about Adolf Sutro, since we can't talk about the Sutro Library without first talking about the reason why the library exists, and that is Mr. Adolf Sutro. He was born in present-day Germany. At the time, it was in Prussia. The city is Aachen, and he was born in 1830, and then 20 years later, he immigrated with his mother and siblings to San Francisco. And then he started off as an entrepreneur. He opened several grocery stores and tobacco stores, but having studied engineering in Germany, he then found a way to use these skills in the mining industry in Nevada, specifically by building a tunnel connected to the Comstock lode. That's known as the Sutro Tunnel. After Sutro Tunnel was completed, Adolf sold it and used his wealth to purchase land in San Francisco, and it is said that at one time he owned at least 1/12 of the city. So he was a very, very wealthy, very prominent guy in the city. During this time, he and his agents also collected books from all over the world, including Europe, Mexico, and Asia. Sometimes Sutro would even buy entire bookstores, just everything in the bookstore, sight unseen. His collection spans over 9 centuries, and the oldest item is a cuneiform tablet, which we have dated to about 2000 BCE. So he has a huge range of items dating back through a large portion of history. By the time he was elected mayor of San Francisco, serving in 1895 to 1897, he had amassed one of the largest private book collections in the world. This is something not a lot of people know about him, so I love sharing this fact. So, Sutro's goal was to create a research library to enhance the cultural welfare of San Francisco, and this timeline you see here illustrates the path with which the library has taken over the years to get to that point. Unfortunately, the library had to be put on hold during his mayoral term, and Adolf died a year later on August 8th, 1898, before his dream could come to fruition. Sutro's library suffered another tragic setback in 1906 when a devastating earthquake and fire destroyed as much as 60% of the collection. However, 15 years after his death, his heirs finally fulfilled their father's wish by gifting the remainder of the collection to the state of California and thereby to its people. We officially opened our doors as a state library in 1917, and that's when we began collecting genealogy material, primarily from donations and loans from the community. For several decades, we hopped around from one temporary location to the next until finally in 2012, we moved into our permanent home at the J. Paul Leonard / Sutro Library on San Francisco State's campus, and that is where we can be found to this day. So a little bit of a quick history lesson for you. And then I'll just start right off the bat with one of the most popular questions that we receive, which is, how do I get to the Sutro Library and where do I park? Public transit, I would say, is probably the easiest way to get to us. There are multiple routes that drop off at 19th Avenue in Holloway, including the 29, the M, a couple other bus routes and Muni routes, but there are also various places to park on or near campus if you prefer to drive. There's metered parking on Holloway Avenue, right next to the library. There's some limited free parking on 19th Avenue, and then you can also park in the parking structure, Lot 20, which is in the red circle here, that red circle. And then that costs, I believe, about $10 for the day and is 10 to 15 minutes away from the library by walking. But if there are any mobility concerns, you can always arrange a shuttle that will pick you up and drop you off anywhere on campus for free. That's a service provided by the university. And then there's a phone number on this slide that you can call, but this is also available on our website if you'd like to check it out later. It's in the Visit Us section in our website. So now that you know how to get to the library, let's talk a little bit about what to expect during your visit. So unfortunately, we've had a little bit of a change recently. You may have heard a little bit about this at other libraries as well, but we've experienced we're experiencing some resource constraints at the moment, so we've had to change and switch to an appointment-only model. So you do need an appointment. I know this slide says no appointment, but you do need an appointment to visit the library. And you just make that appointment on our website, and you can make it at this address right here, but there's also an easy way to do it on our website, and I'll show you later on in this presentation. So we ask that you schedule your appointment a few days in advance just to make sure that you're going to be, you'll have a spot, that your spot will be available. And you can also, like I said, you can do that on the link on this slide, which you can also find on our website, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And although you do need an appointment, you do not need a library card or any other special qualification to access our reading room or our materials. It's available to everybody. On site at the library, we have lockers to store anything that we don't allow inside. We also have public computers and Wi-Fi access. We have scanners, which allow you to save images to a flash drive or email. And then we also have microfilm readers for you to access our microfilm. And while the Sutro Library is a public library, as I said, we're open to everybody, we do also consider ourselves a special collection because of some of those rare older materials that Adolf Sutro bought that we still have. And similar to most special collections and archives, we have a couple extra rules that you might not find in most public libraries. So one of these rules is we limit the items patrons can bring inside to protect these rare items we care for. So just keep in mind, just so you already know when you visit, you can bring in things like loose paper and pencils. We also have those available for you in case you forget them. And you can bring in mobile devices, phones, laptops, chargers, but nothing else, including notebooks, binders, folders, pens, especially things like food and drink. Those will all go in the locker when you arrive. And your bags as well will also go in the locker. So one of, I think, the highlights of the Sutro Library, besides all of our equipment that we have, is our staff. So the staff at Sutro are available to assist you with your research, both in person and virtually. We can look things up in our materials, search publications, help you find relevant sources, provide limited scanning services, and refer you to other resources if we don't have what you need at our library. We cannot, however, conduct in-depth research for you, and we also cannot lend out special collections items, which can only be accessed in the building. Those are things we want to make sure we know where they are. We're keeping track of them at all times. And again, remember, even though we can't loan out special collections items, if you're not able to come visit us in person, reach out to us and we can still help you virtually. So, why might you want to make a visit to Sutro? I know I mentioned a lot of rules and you have to lock up your bags and it seems like kind of a whole annoying thing. So why would you want to go all the way out there and come to our library? So here's a couple of reasons that I think are pretty important. First and foremost, even though some genealogical records are available online, and nowadays that amount is definitely growing with databases like Family Search and Ancestry providing access to a lot of records, many, many more records are not available online, and they can only be accessed through print resources like the ones that we have in our collection. Our print resources can also help you navigate online records. For example, some of our indexes provide guidance on collections on Ancestry.com, which haven't been indexed yet. So, it's not either or online or in the library. You can use both resources together to get more out of them. Our collection also offers broad geographic coverage. So our sister library in Sacramento, the California History section, has a robust California history collection. We at Sutro focus on the other 49 states and beyond, which allows you to easily research the movement of your ancestors across locations in a single visit. A lot of us have ancestors that come from lots of different places, and they may have moved around a lot in their history throughout the United States and also throughout the world. So it's great to be able to research all those different locations in one place. In addition to our collections, we also offer educational opportunities in the form of virtual genealogy talks and exhibits which highlight materials from our vault. So our next genealogy talk is coming up this fall, and I can't share a lot of details yet, but this is just a little sneak peek, so stay tuned for more information. And in case you would like more information, our quarterly e-newsletter is a great way to keep up to date on events and exhibits like these, and I'll share later on how you can subscribe to the newsletter. And last but not least, we have a knowledgeable and friendly staff. At least I'm a little biased here, but I'd like to think that we know a little bit, and we'll do our best to help you. And we all have a background in rare books, archives, and genealogy, and we're willing to help you in any way that we can. And it's also, I guess, useful to highlight that since we are a state agency, our services are all impartial. We offer them to everyone, and we come in with an attitude of no judgment. Whatever your question is, we're here to help you answer it. So definitely don't be shy about saying hello to the staff when you make your visit. So in summary, the Sutro Library's extensive resources allow you to jump between different sources like vital records, newspapers, family histories, land records, periodicals, and databases all in one location so you can create a full picture of the lives of the ancestors you're researching. So this, for example, is a person that one of my colleagues was doing a little bit of research on, and she was able to find all of these different sources that connect back just to this one person. So we have a lot in our library, that you can use in combination in order to, really learn a lot about the ancestors that you're looking into. So hopefully, now that I've convinced you to pay us a visit and you arrive at the library and you're ready to start exploring the stacks, you will find a vast range of materials there. Our library has everything from family histories, city and county histories, directories, including city, phone directories, social directories, birth registers, tax lists, cemetery inscriptions, church records, land records, court records. We have indexes and abstracts. We have genealogical and historical publications, archival materials, all kinds of stuff. So there's a really, really broad range of materials that you'll find at the Sutro Library. But just to kind of give you an idea, I'd like to highlight what some of these materials are. And I will start with a very special resource. This is our surname and locality catalog. So that picture kind of shows you what it looks like. It's a good old-fashioned card catalog, which is really, really fun. We don't get to use them all the time. So it's very exciting whenever you get to use one. These card catalogs index the surnames and locations that are mentioned in each title in the reading room arranged alphabetically. So you can think of it as an index of all the indexes. It's a great place to start. If you have a surname you're looking for, you can go to the surname catalog, find that surname, and then each card will tell you a book in which the surname is mentioned. I will warn you, it hasn't been updated since the 1990s, so it's not going to contain every single book. There might be some things missing there, but it's still an invaluable source and a really great place to start if you're in the library for the first time and you're not sure what to do. We are especially proud of our collection of over 8,000 family and local histories, which survey the research available on families and communities across the country so you can verify, re-examine, and correct other researchers' conclusions. These items also provide a wealth of vital information and historical context. Many of our family histories are unique and cannot be found in any other library in California. So on this slide, I want to highlight maybe one of our more non-traditional family histories. This is a photo book. You can see an example of a couple of pages from the book here, and it follows the history of a family's wedding veil. In it, there are photos of brides wearing the veil along with clippings of information about their marriages. It highlights the importance of heirloom objects to many families and provides inspiration to those of us working on our own family stories to think outside the box when we're writing those stories together. So you get these really beautiful pictures that kind of invite you into the lives of these folks, and then also you get the vital information about their marriages. So you get kind of both in one place. I also, let's see. Okay, I'm missing a couple slides here, but I also want to share an example of some of the information you might find in a local history. So the book is unfortunately not on the screen here, but we have a book that's about Wellsburg, Pennsylvania, and it's has a little bit of information just about happenings in the town, and most of them are relatively mundane. You know, we have paragraphs about cheese factories and the location of a cemetery, and then right in the middle of those, there's a section about the town believing the world was going to end. And if you read through the paragraph, it turns out that what happened was just a solar eclipse. So you can get the funny little tidbits that are hidden in the history of these towns here. And this is super interesting, and it just goes to show that you never know what you're going to find when you take a book off the shelf. So the Sutro Library also has thousands of phone and city directories, and this is now the picture that you see on the screen. Our phone directories, that's some of those, not on the screen yet, but our phone directories dating from the 1970s to the 2000s are all on microfiche, and they're currently available on site, although we're working on a database to make them more accessible online. But our city directories, that's some of these right here, exist on microfilm, microfiche, and print copies, and they're scattered throughout the stacks. We have copies that date back to as early as 1665, and then they go through up to about 1986. And while you can find some of these directories online, you won't find the smaller and unincorporated cities that we have in the stacks. And in addition, online databases like Ancestry often only digitize portions of these directories, while we have the complete copies. So for example, the 1930 Philadelphia directory is only partially available on Ancestry, but it's available in full at the Sutro Library. Another highlight from our reading room is our collection of Boston Evening transcript clippings. So this daily afternoon newspaper published a genealogy column at least twice a week from the late 1890s to about 1941. In this column, researchers queried, answered, and theorized about various genealogical questions, and it's similar to kind of a present-day online discussion board or a Facebook group. And somebody, I'm not quite sure who, but I'd very much like to thank them if I could find out who they are, cut out all clippings from huge runs of this newspaper and then pasted them onto these little cards. So we have access to them today. And this is a valuable resource for New England genealogy from the 16 through about the 1800s, but it also covers families west of the Appalachians, such as in Kentucky and Missouri. Clippings and microfiche are available in our reading room, and quite a few researchers have requested scans of the originals for their Lineage Society membership applications, and while other libraries will charge for this request, we provide scans for free. So I think that's a really important thing to mention. You will never pay anything for any service at the Sutro Library. Everything is always going to be free, and that's, again, because we're a state agency and we're a public library, and our mission is to serve the public. So you're never going to have a sneaky fee for any copies or scans or anything like that. Now, I want to zoom in on some selections from our reading room that can help you with your genealogical research. First up, we have a list of San Francisco cemetery records from 1848 to 1863. This book includes the names of the deceased, where they were born, how old they were when they passed, and where in San Francisco they were buried. In addition, the book sometimes mentions the way people died, like by suicide or by gunshot wound. It includes the folks who died when the steamer Tahama exploded in October 1850, and it also includes the members of the Donner family from the 1846 ill-fated Donner Party, which you can see in the red box on the screen. So yeah, it says member Donner Party next to all of those folks' names. So that's a fun little historical tidbit that you can find in our reading room. But if you have ancestors from San Francisco from that time, you might find them in this book as well. So the next three items that I'm going to talk about are some of our most requested titles from our genealogy collection. This first one is a 2-volume set entitled King's Daughters and Founding Mothers. It's a biographical dictionary of the nearly 800 women and girls sent from France to populate the colony of New France in Canada between 1663 and 1673. This work presents comprehensive biographies of all the king's daughters, including information never before available in English, and it also includes photographs, reproductions of artwork related to the daughters, and even biographies of 36 women who, in previous works, were falsely identified as king's daughters. And what's super interesting is that the king's daughters were given the choice of whom to marry. So you see in many of the biographies that some marriage contracts were made and then annulled, and then new matches were made. And this is a choice that many women would not have had they stayed in France. And if you have French-Canadian roots, there is a very, very strong chance that you are related to a king's daughter, especially in kind of French Canada, Eastern Canada. There's just an absolutely shocking number of people can trace their ancestry back to these women. And now I'm going to highlight the Southwest Louisiana records. Called the father of Southwest Louisiana genealogy, Reverend Donald Hebert compiled the definitive source for family members who have roots in the Pelican State. Reverend Hebert's opus contains information meticulously extracted from Southwest Louisiana church and courthouse records spanning 2 centuries from the 1750s to the 1950s and covering 13 parishes, occupying 3 shelves. It's just an absolutely massive set. The set is arranged chronologically and contains abstracts that include information on births, marriages, baptisms, and deaths. Researchers can also find parish histories, cattle brands, maps, tombstone inscriptions, court transcripts, and photocopies of original documents throughout the set. And through the help of the California State Library Foundation, we were able to complete our set, and we are now the only library west of Salt Lake City to hold all 52 volumes. All the volumes are extraordinary resources that contain utterly unique information. However, one volume worth noting in particular is volume 33. Volume 33 contains an index of the sections found within the first 33 volumes, which is very helpful. And it also has abstractions of the records of blacks from 1765 to 1886, which may be especially useful for African American genealogy research. So this is another resource where if you have any family that goes back to Southwest Louisiana, there's a really, really high chance that you're going to find something useful in this set of books. And the last item that I'll highlight from the reading room is Izmir list of 7,300 names of Jewish brides and grooms compiled by Dov Cohen. Apart from Sutro Library, this 27-page index is only available at one other library in California and only a few others nationwide. The index was created from marriage contracts in the Jewish community of Izmir in Turkey and lists the names of brides and grooms who married between the years of 1883 and 1901 and then between 1918 and 1933. The original records include information on the fathers of the bride and groom and the date of marriage, the name of the synagogue, and the amount of the dowry. The author states that the original information was written in a script known to be linked to Sephardic Jews or Jews who originate from the Iberian Peninsula. In 2015, just to give you a little story about why this information can be so valuable, both Spain and Portugal began granting citizenship to those who could prove that they descended from Jews expelled from Spain and Portugal at the end of the 15th century. On April 29th, 1492, the Edict of Expulsion decreed that the Jews living in Spain could stay if they converted to Christianity or else face execution if they refused to convert or refused to leave. Many of these Spanish Jews sought refuge in Portugal, only to then be expelled 5 years later by the government there. Others fled to the Ottoman Empire, settling in cities in Greece and Turkey and beyond. This index is integral to helping researchers prove their Sephardic heritage, and thereby right or wrong that was done so many years ago. And even someone who has Ashkenazi ancestry or Jewish ancestors who originate from Central or Eastern Europe might be able to trace their ancestors after the act of expulsion back to Spain or Portugal. So that is why indexes like these are so valuable. Not only do they help people trace their family history, but they can also help with things like citizenship applications and other kinds of paperwork like that. I'll end this section of the presentation with a list of some other resources that aren't widely available and may help with your genealogical research or to provide context for your family history. So this is always something that we're trying to make sure we don't forget is, of course, those names and dates and family connections are important, but then another thing we want to make sure that we capture is the experiences of those people, what their lives were like, what their cultures were like. All those kinds of details can provide a lot of a much more full picture of the family experience. Many family histories are donated to us throughout the year, and through the support of the California State Library Foundation, we are also able to expand our collection to include titles on underrepresented groups and titles that represent women and the heirlooms they pass down. So for example, we have a book called Quilt of Souls, which you see in the top corner. And this is a memoir about the author and her grandmother, two African-American women, and a quilt that her grandmother made from used clothing. So these kinds of stories, again, although not traditional genealogical sources, can really help fill in the gaps and tell you, what these women's lives were like. So while we are a genealogy library, of course, we also still exist to care for and make accessible the antiquarian collection of Adolf Sutro, which I described at the beginning of the presentation. And although this wasn't necessarily his original intention, some of the materials that Sutro collected are also fantastic sources for genealogical research. If you go in our catalog, which I'll show you a little bit later on, the catalog lists the location for these materials as the vault. So when you go to make your appointment, just make sure to let us know if you're interested in one of these, that you would like materials from the vault, and just make sure to tell us what they are, and that make sure that we can have those materials ready for you when you arrive for your visit. So now I will talk a little bit about some of these materials. I just want to highlight some of these unique resources. I know not everyone doing genealogy research will seek out an archive or a special collection, but hopefully after today I can convince you why going to these sources can actually be really, really useful for you. So first up, we have one of my personal favorite items from our vault, and also a local favorite. So I mentioned that we have a lot of city and telephone directories earlier, and here is a truly unusual one. This was made about barely 3.5 weeks after the 1906 earthquake and fire. As far as we know, it's the first telephone directory that was made for the city after that disaster. It is 48 pages. It's a lot shorter than most of the telephone directories are quite large, and this one is very, very, very slim. But it still has a lot of good information. So in the red box, you can see the listing for the Sutro family. The directory is remarkable on many levels, not the least of which is that it demonstrates the telephone company's ability to rebuild much of its infrastructure and restore service in a remarkably short period of time. But it can also help you locate ancestors in this period of trial and flux when many families had been displaced. So you might find out what happened to family members in San Francisco immediately after the earthquake, when there's not a lot of other records that would tell you where they were. Our next example is called Catholics and Prohibition. It was a publication printed regularly in New York, and we have copies from 1908 to 1919. Reverend George Zucker, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, but yeah, Reverend George Zucker from North Evans, New York, the priest responsible for this publication, was an ardent advocate of total abstinence from alcohol and also president of the Catholic Clergy Prohibition League. Besides being a wonderful source of information about the temperance movement, the serials mention names, which are always going to be useful to genealogists. For example, the League was also a supporter of women's suffrage, and this story mentions by name the women property owners of Manoa, New York, who voted for the first time. And I can only imagine how exciting it would be to discover one of your female ancestors on this list. That would just be absolutely fantastic. Next, we have this huge photo album of David B. Gamble's travels in Europe with his brother Edwin Gamble. Included is a souvenir passenger list, which you can see on the lower left. And this includes names of the passengers on their ship and their cities of residence. The Gambles, for example, resided in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, if the name Gamble sounds familiar to you and makes you think of the company Procter & Gamble, you would not be mistaken. Edwin and David were the sons of co-founder James Gamble, who immigrated to America from Ireland in 1819. We had no idea that this belonged to the Gamble family until a predecessor of mine, a previous Sutro librarian, did a little genealogy research, and believe it or not, just by reviewing the passenger list, she had enough information to get started. She saw the list, she said, Gamble, I wonder if that's Gamble of Procter & Gamble, and it turns out that she was right. So just goes to show these little tidbits can really lead you down a rabbit hole that sometimes leads you to some interesting stuff. Next, we have an arithmetic textbook published by the Commission of National Education in Ireland in 1850. The national school system in Ireland originated about 20 years earlier in 1831. Textbooks like these were supplied by the commissioners to Irish schools free of charge beginning in 1833, so long as the schools followed the commission's rules, which placed some restrictions on religious education. So if your ancestor was living in Ireland during this time and they went to a secular school, it's likely they used a textbook like this one. And this is going to be one of those sources that's really useful for filling in context. Although it doesn't contain any names, it gives you the opportunity to kind of experience what your ancestors would have experienced if they came from this place in time. Next, we have the report from the Select Committee on Sugar and Coffee Planting in the 1840s. And I know this doesn't sound very exciting, but trust me, I think it will be pretty exciting. This report covered islands under British rule at the time, such as Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad. And its purpose was to assess Britain's West and East Indian possessions. So from the British point of view, this was really kind of a property assessment. In these reports, you will find lists like this one. This is a pay bill for the Sheldon Estate in Jamaica, which records names associated with the state. It's useful to note that slavery was fully abolished in Jamaica in 1834, and this pay bill is from 1847. So at this time, slavery had been abolished on the island. And then I know this is really small, so I will zoom in. Hopefully you can read this. You can see kind of the categories on the top box, and then on the bottom box, you can see I zoomed in on some of the names, and one of the names that we'd like to highlight is Pompeii. So this is a single name listed without a surname, and it's possible that this could belong to someone who was formerly enslaved on this island and is now working as a laborer on the estate. And as you can see, lists like this one can be useful in tracking your ancestors. The report also includes one-sided testimonies from people visiting these islands, including in Cuba, where people were still enslaved at this time. So that can provide some really helpful historical context. And seeing the names of formerly enslaved people on lists like this can be especially helpful because these folks are notoriously hard to track down, and their names don't appear in a lot of places. And so, anytime their name appears, that's going to be a whole wealth of information. And then last up, from the items that I'll highlight from our vault, is our pocket-sized Emancipation Proclamation. This was something that was given to newly freed slaves as proof of their freedom and was read aloud by Union soldiers in Confederate territory so that the official words of the president could be heard firsthand, and also because a lot of the formerly enslaved people had been restricted from learning how to read. So many of them were not able to read the Emancipation Proclamation for themselves. The proclamation paved the way for the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in the United States in 1865. Given the fragility of this particular item, there are a couple of restrictions on its use, but researchers are still welcome to come see it in person. And hopefully this picture, we put a ruler next to it. I know it's kind of hard to imagine, but the thing that I'm hoping to highlight here is that you could see how small it is. It's such a significant publication, and it's just this teeny, teeny, tiny little pamphlet. So it's really, really kind of surprising to see this in person. Every time we show someone this, they're like, wow, it's so small. But yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I highlighted that. So hopefully these examples demonstrate the rich and fruitful sources which genealogists can find in special collections and archives like ours. A lot of these sources are totally unique. There's only one. We have the only copy. And they have information that can't be found anywhere else in the world. So as you conduct your genealogy research, I encourage you to think outside the box and don't discount special collections and archives, which can be valuable companions to more traditional genealogy sources. So for the next part of my presentation, I'd just like to explain a little bit more about how you can access some of the Sutro Library's resources remotely. So we'll talk a little bit about our online catalog, the genealogy hub, and then outside access points like the Online Archive of California, and ways to interact with Sutro online and learn more about our collection. So hopefully this will leave you a little bit more prepared to access some of our services and resources after this. So first of all, I want to talk about our online catalog. You can access our catalog through the search bar at the top of the Sutro Library homepage. I also have a link up there on the screen that goes directly to the catalog. But if you go to our homepage, you'll easily be able to find it. And then when you start searching, I went too fast there. When you start searching, I would recommend choosing Library Catalog from the drop-down menu next to the search bar. And that way you only see results from our catalog and not from one of the online databases that we subscribe to. Unless you're a state worker or you're on site, these results may not be accessible. So it's just sometimes a lot easier if they don't even show up and just they end up being confusing in the search results. But once you enter your keywords into the search bar, it's going to look something like this. So in this example, I typed in Philadelphia directory or directories. So I recommend searching by subject. You could search by subject or location and record type. So that's kind of what I've done in this example. I've searched for a location and a type of record. If you search by your ancestor's name, results may not pop up. So this is where I recommend broadening your terms and look for the location. You could try searching by city, and if that doesn't get you results, you could try searching by county, something like that. Another librarian once told me that searching is free, so just type in a bunch of different stuff until you get something that looks like what you want. You can try lots of different search terms. So you can use, this is just kind of a little extra tip here, you can use an asterisk at the end of a word like I did here to include all possible variations of that word. So in this case, that asterisk stands in for directory single or directories multiple, so this way you'll get both depending on what appears in the title. And then just a quick note, you'll see that yellow bar at the top that says sign in to get complete results and request items. You can ignore that bar. No catalog results are hidden from you, and there's no special access given to search results if you have a login. This just refers to state workers and databases that they can access remotely. So unless this is you, you can just ignore the bar or click the X on it if it's bothering you. And then on this page, there are also various ways to filter your results. So, I got some red boxes here. Okay, there we go. So in the final square that just popped up, I'm highlighting one of the filters. It's useful to know that we share this catalog with the entire California State Library, most of which is located in Sacramento. So if you'd like to see only what's in the Sutro Library, you can click on the library filter on the left and then select Sutro, and that'll just show you what we have here in San Francisco. Okay, I also would like to talk about the Online Archive of California. If you are not familiar with this website, it is a really great source of information about our holdings, but also about archival collections located in California in general. This is an online catalog of archival finding aids across California. And a finding aid is just kind of like an inventory. It's like a guide to a collection that lists the materials in the collection. You can find information on collections that include materials from like locations and families from all over the world. So it's not, I know it says Online Archive of California, but it doesn't just contain information related to California. It contains all kinds of crazy stuff. You can search by keyword, collection name, location, and institution. And in this case, I actually do recommend searching an ancestor's name just to see just to see what pops up, see if you come up with anything. On the screen, you can see our page on the online archive, which includes all of our cataloged archival collections. So you can always browse by collection, or you can try searching and seeing if anything pops up in a search. And I'd like to mention that even if you don't see what you're looking for on our page, you can reach out to us because we may be able to find a resource in our collection that doesn't appear here, or we might be able to find you a resource at another institution that would serve your needs. So in this example, I just want to give you a little bit of a closer look at an archival finding aid, and I'm showing you our finding aid for the Mansell-White family papers, which is in our collection. So as I mentioned, a finding aid is like a detailed roadmap for an archival collection if you've never used one before. It provides background information, details about the size and format of the collection, and instructions for how to access it. If you click the detailed list of contents link on the right side of the page, you'll also see a complete inventory of the items in the collection. And all this information can help you locate the items that are most relevant for your research. Once you've found the materials you need and you're ready to request to see them, make sure that you write down things like the box or folder number, since this will make the librarian's job a lot easier when they go to find it for you. So I'm sharing this information a little bit selfishly because it's probably going to be me who's going to look for it for you. So you'll really make my life easier if you write down that information. Whoops, I went too fast again. Okay, in the Mansell-White family papers, there are many items that can be used for genealogical research while we're on the topic of this collection, including a land deed for a burial plot purchased in 1874, and numerous letters between the family members and their neighbors and friends. Once, I even received a request from a researcher who tracked their family line back to one of the family's household staff, a formerly enslaved black woman, and they requested copies of the photographs of her included in the collection. That was a really cool moment for me, I know I can say. And all of this is to say, of course, just repeating, archival collections are fantastic resources for genealogy research, and the finding aids on the Online Archive of California can help you discover and navigate these resources. So I definitely recommend giving it a visit and just poking around and seeing what you're able to find. So the Sutro Library also offers a variety of online resources that you can access from home, and these all live on the genealogy page on our website. Probably the easiest way to find this is just go to our homepage, the Sutro Library homepage, and then click on the genealogy icon. It'll take you right there. So first of all, I will highlight, make sure that I'm doing these in the right order. Okay, so first of all, you can visit the library events page to learn about our upcoming events and to catch up with past events. We usually hold about 3 to 4 virtual genealogy talks a year, and these are all recorded and freely available on the California State Library's YouTube channel. And you can also find links to each video on this page right here if you click on library events. To give you some examples of some of the kinds of events you might find on our docket, this past March, we had food writer Sarah Calvosa Olson to speak about Native California foodways and connecting to culture through food in her talk titled Let's Eat. And in April of 2024, professional genealogist Miyamoto Loretta Jensen gave a talk on researching your Polynesian ancestors. Just actually a couple weeks ago, we did a talk about Palestinian American genealogy, and that recording is not up yet, but I hope to have it up very, very soon. So definitely sit tight for that one. But both of the other talks are available to watch anytime on YouTube, so definitely check those out if you are interested. So as a virtual hub for our local genealogy community, we also host the Bay Area Genealogy Calendar in that second red box, where you can find out about family history events happening throughout the Bay Area. You can access the calendar here on our genealogy page, or there's also a link directly on our homepage. It features events presented by numerous genealogical societies, museums, libraries. The San Francisco Public Library often sends us events to put up there, and other organizations, and you can learn more about each event by clicking on its entry in the calendar. Many of the events are virtual and free to access, and we update them very regularly, so make sure that you're checking back often so you don't miss anything. Okay, so The Genealogy Hub provides a brief overview of the genealogy resources offered by different sections of the California State Library, including the Sutro Library, that's us. The Hub will lead you to the California State Library's Genealogy Toolkit, which provides tips, strategies, and links to help you with your research. So this is a really good place to visit if you are just getting started. And then finally, I would like to highlight our telephone directories on microfiche database, which is accessible through this final link on our genealogy page. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that we have telephone directories on microfiche for the 1970s through the 2000s, and you previously needed to visit us on site to explore this collection. However, we're now creating a database so that researchers can access the holdings remotely. So this is a really exciting project we've been working on for a while. This database includes the title of each directory. Often the city or county is represented here. It includes the year of publication, the type, whether yellow or white pages, and some entries include a notes field detailing communities that are included in that directory. We're working through our collection in alphabetical order by state, and I believe as of this year, we've made it through the letter M. So if you're looking for a place through the first section of the alphabet, you are in luck. But we will continue to add more states until the database is complete. So if a directory of interest to you is not available here yet, check back later to see if we've updated the database. And please note that this database doesn't include information about which names are present in each directory. So once you've identified one you'd like to consult, you're welcome to come down to the library and check it out yourself, or you can reach out to us, let us know the directory and the name, and then we can check it out for you. So that's what makes this directory so useful. Previously, you would have had to just visit in person, and that was the only way to do it. But now this gives you the option of virtual access to the telephone databases. Okay, so I'm kind of wrapping up here. I know I've been talking for a little while, but if you'd like to get in touch with us, there are multiple ways to do so. Even though we have limited hours, we do check our voicemail and email frequently, and we do our best to respond to questions within about a day or so. Email is often the best way to reach us, and you see our email address on the screen there, but you can also call our main reference line there, and we answer that number as well as often as we can. Definitely leave a voicemail if we don't pick up, because we do check those regularly. Alternatively, you can take advantage of Ask a Librarian, a free reference service you can find at the top of our website. There's a little question mark up there. You can click it. And then once you fill out a brief form and submit your request, your question will be directed to a California State Librarian, usually the person who's most equipped to help you answer it, and they will respond within a few business days. So I'm going to go through these last couple slides a little bit quickly because I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. But if you have a reference question for us and you'd like our staff's help with finding information about an ancestor but aren't sure how to ask, I just want to give you a few tips to get you started. So try to keep your question short and focused by sticking to one ancestor at a time and just providing the necessary information about them. You don't have to tell us everything about their life. Just tell us the information that will help us find what you're looking for. Don't forget to include their name, of course, and then also relevant locations and dates, and then tell us what you would like to find out. So for example, your reference question might look something like this. I am looking for Ida Gross's marriage license, which may have happened in Philadelphia between the years of 1912 when she arrived and 1916 when her first child was born, and her husband was named Harry Cohen. So that's a nice, concise reference question. I will say, though, that if you are looking for something that's maybe a little bit more difficult to describe, definitely don't be shy about asking. Reach out to us. I love getting a nice, juicy, challenging reference question. So if I need more information, I'll definitely ask you for more information, and I'll do the best I can with what you give me. So yeah, don't be shy. Once we receive your request, we'll start by searching our resources to see what we can find, and then we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Usually I try to get back within a few days, depending on how complicated the request is. And although we're not always able to find a direct answer to your question, we can usually provide a few leads for you to follow up on or sources to try as you continue your research yourself. So sometimes you give me a question and then I give you a bunch of homework, which is just how it works. So think of us as one of the tools in your genealogical tool belt. We can't do extensive research for you, but if you get stuck, you can tag us in and we can try to help you get back on track. So before I end my presentation, I want to make sure I share our quarterly e-newsletter with you. You can find this link on the homepage on our website, just like everything else, but I also have a direct link here. And this is a great way to keep up with all things Sutro Library and stay up to date on upcoming events, exhibits, new acquisitions, or other exciting library news. And you can join all our other Sutronians, as we like to call them, at this link. So I definitely recommend that you do that, and we're not going to bombard you. Like I said, we just send an email or so every quarter, and then sometimes a special announcement if we have an event that's coming up. And then the next edition of the newsletter, I'll mention, comes out at the beginning of September. So if you sign up now, then you'll make sure not to miss that one. As I wrap up my presentation, I just have a few closing thoughts for you. So I've talked a lot today about all the wonderful materials available at Sutro Library, and in many cases, we are only able to obtain these materials through generous donations from genealogists like yourselves. Although we can't accept things like genealogical research notes or photocopies from other publications, we are happy to consider donations of family papers, artifacts, and published family histories. So if you have written or are working on a family history, once you have completed it and it's kind of published and bound and ready to go, please consider donating a copy to the Sutro Library to make sure that your research, all the hard work that you've done, is available to other researchers to access and take advantage of. And as I mentioned, if you have a box of papers sitting around in the basement, and you're like, I don't know what to do with these, it's possible that we'll be interested in them. So past donors have generally gifted us everything from their published genealogy books to their family's recipe box, and in one case, we even received about 15 binders worth of papers gifted to us in the donor's will documenting her life and family. So an example of that, one of those documents found in that collection is on the screen. These papers now are the contents of the Charlotte Ann Boone Ferretti collection, and they have been cataloged by our staff and are available for researchers. You'll find the finding aid to this collection on the online Archive of California page that I mentioned earlier. The wonderful collection contains photographs, handwritten letters, a horse's pedigree chart, cuttings of Charlotte's hair, a World War I nurse's military passport, that's what you see on the screen there, and family property records dating back to the 1800s. So it really, really is a rich collection, and in my opinion, a very special one. And we are so honored that Charlotte has entrusted this collection to us and for the opportunity to preserve and make it accessible for generations to come. So as I mentioned, the next time you come across that box of old papers in your basement and wonder what on earth you're going to do with it, I hope that you'll remember the Sutro Library. So definitely feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in donating to us. So I want to give you one last example of a genealogy event that we've done. So this is an advertisement for the genealogy event that we did in March. As I mentioned, the details of our next event are still kind of a secret, but stay tuned. We'll be hosting another one in fall, and if you subscribe to that newsletter, you will get all of the details about that straight to your inbox. So I know I shared a lot of information with you this morning, but I hope you'll leave today with a better understanding of what the Sutro Library is, what we have in our collection, and how we can support your genealogy research. You can see all of our contact information is on this slide, as well as our address, and then at the bottom, my email address is there if you'd like to get in touch with me personally. And definitely, please don't hesitate to reach out to us anytime. If you have questions, no matter large or small, this is what we're here for, so we are always really excited to receive questions. And then finally, I would like to thank you all for attending today's symposium. I would like, once again, to thank Richard and the San Francisco Public Library for inviting us to speak today, and I'd like to thank all the other speakers who are here to share their expertise with us. I know I'm really excited to hear what they have to say. And yeah, I also hope to see all of you at the Sutro Library very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Anyone have a question for?
Are you making efforts to digitize your more rare items?
Yes, so that is something that we are doing constantly. We focus our digitation efforts, as I mentioned, of course you're going to see this in almost every library, but we have very limited resources to do this. But we usually focus on the items that are most popular, most requested. So we're digitizing things, I would say, almost every day. Some of those items are currently available online if you go to our catalog. Sometimes you'll see a link in the catalog to view the item online. But a lot of the stuff I'll say, oh, microphone. Okay, sorry, I completely forgot. Okay, back to the microphone. But yeah, a lot of the stuff I would say probably the majority of the collection is not digitized, but it's something that we're working on. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Steenalisa, I have a question regarding British West Indies area, like Barbados and maybe possibly Guyana and things like that in the Caribbean. I'm trying to trace down my mom's side of the family. Do you have any materials that go up to, let's say, 1960 or 70, as far as city directories, business directories, things like that?
You know, that is a question that I'd have to look into a little bit more. So off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I know that we do have a section about the West Indies area in the reading room. So you'll find, if you visit the reading room, everything is organized by location. So that helps hopefully make things easier to find. So if you go to that section, you might find some of what you're looking for. In terms of the specific years that you're looking for, chat with me afterwards and I can check into it and then get back to you.
Okay, and these were like colonies and so forth organized in those areas under British rule or and that kind of thing. But do they actually, the British government, run or do those? These are small islands and small places and countries, especially the islands up there. And the question is, do they have any kind of archival or genealogical resourcing available regarding looking up relatives or ship manifests, things like that, that we commonly can research here, like through NARA and so forth?
So these are some really, really good questions. So this is another one I might have to look into a little bit afterwards.
All right. I didn't want to put you spot. You don't know offhand, but thank you for looking into it.
Of course, yeah. And this is where I would actually say that like archives and special collections might be your friend. So I mentioned that report on sugar and coffee plantations earlier. So that contains some of kind of like the colonial records from the time that Britain was in charge of these islands. So you might be looking at resources like that. But yeah, definitely chat with me afterwards. This would be really interesting to look into more.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
I apologize, I came in a couple of minutes late and I think I missed a critical piece of information. I don't live in San Francisco. I'm a member of a number of genealogical groups and I'm very serious and an amateur. I'm kind of curious, you probably covered this in your intro, is Sutro an independent, private, I'm confused how it connects with the San Francisco library system. I know it's been thrown around a lot in my genealogical meetings, but it sounds like you have such a massive set of collections. And was the focus initially on San Francisco and California history, and then it just broadened and broadened?
Yeah, so so the Sutro Library, this is something I think maybe you missed at the beginning, but that's okay. That's totally fine. So the Sutro Library is a branch of the California State Library. We originally, the reason why our collection seems a little bit very broad and very scattered is we started off as a private collection. We were the collection of Adolf Sutro, and then kind of a very quick version, he donated, his heirs donated the collection to the state of California, and then since then it became a state library. This is something I didn't mention actually, but it was a stipulation of the donation that the library never leaves San Francisco. So the Sutro Library is not allowed to leave San Francisco, and to this day we are the only branch of the California State Library that is not in Sacramento. No other city besides Sacramento has a branch there. So that makes us a little bit, we're kind of, a little bit unique, a little bit special in that regard. So we're a branch of the California State Library, and this is why we're able to provide provide these public services. And then I also kind of want to highlight that we provide the service, our services to everybody. You do not have to live in San Francisco. You do not have to live in California. We have international researchers who will reach out to us for material. So if you're not local to San Francisco, I would say probably those virtual services that we offer are going to be your best friend. So definitely reach out to us. A lot of the times what we're able to do is provide digital images of items. Usually if it's we have to deal with copyright and things like that, so we usually can't send you like a whole book, but we can usually do lookups for you and provide images and things like that. So yeah, of course.
Question here.
Yes, so I was wondering if you had Chinese genealogies, clan histories, that kind of thing. They're called zupus.
I don't believe that we have a lot of zupus in our collection. However, we do have an online database that's going to be a really great resource. We have a subscription to, now I'm forgetting what it's called. My China Roots. Yes, thank you so much. We have a subscription to My China Roots, and that is a really great resource for any person with Chinese ancestry. And they have a lot of zupus that have been digitized and that they have access to, and you can search for them there. And that's something that you can access in our reading room for free. So if you make a visit, definitely I would take advantage of that one. So in this case, we kind of have an online resource that we can offer instead of a print resource. That's something that we got relatively recently. I was thrilled when we got it because it's fantastic, especially, like I said, for those folks who are looking into Chinese ancestry. I hope that helps.
Sorry, I have another question that just came to mind. Do you happen to have any special collections on early California women's history? I do have an ancestor who came over in the early 1850s from France, and I'd really like to learn a lot more about her and other women of that era.
So this is where our connections with the California State Library, I would say, are really, really helpful. So we do have some materials that I think would be useful. One of the collections that we cataloged relatively recently is on Addie Viola Smith, she's not an early kind of she's a little bit later, I would say, in the state's history, but she is from San Francisco, and she is one of the first women to serve in a very high position in the federal government. She was an ambassador to China. She spent a lot of time traveling back and forth between China. She was just a really fantastic, incredible woman, and we have her papers. So that, I would say, is very special in terms of women's history and also local history in general. But I would say that the California history section, which is located in Sacramento, they have really, their specialty is California history, whereas we have a lot of broader interest. So I would say if you ask them this question, I'm sure they have a ton of stuff that they would be able to refer you to. And we can connect you to the California history section. So if you reach out to us at our email address, just let us know you're interested in this, and we can hook you up with their librarians, and they'll be able to help you a lot. So this is where our connections with the state library can be really, really, really useful. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all, and thank you.
All
And
right.
if you have any questions, you can contact her directly, or you can talk to her afterward.
Of course,
Thank you.
yeah. I will be here all day, so
We're
come
here
chat with
all
me.
day.
All right. Thank you.